Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak in favour of Economic Action Plan 2013 and our government's budget implementation bill. Even in the face of this global downturn under the leadership of this Prime Minister and this Finance Minister, Canada has led the world. Our net debt to GDP ratio is the lowest in the world. All the major credit agencies have affirmed Canada's AAA credit rating. And we've enjoyed the strongest job creation record in the G7. Canada has created more than 950,000 net new jobs since 2009, and 90% of those were full-time, 80% in the private sector. Our government's leadership and discipline, our fiscal program, played a strong role in ensuring that Canada's economy stayed on the rails moving forward. In fact, to quote an editorial from my local paper, the Waterloo Region Record, quote, "Canada is doing better and should continue to do better than most other advanced industrial nations, thanks in part to the fiscal prudence of this finance minister's budget." Canada will continue to lead the world because the Canadian government has made the tough, responsible choices. The choice to engage Canadians in a massive temporary stimulus program that kept our economy afloat and built world-class research and commercialization facilities and much-needed community assets and infrastructure, roads, bridges, water treatment facilities, and community centres. The choice to maintain our commitment to lowering taxes on individuals and businesses that ensures Canada is an excellent place to call home, to work, to build a business, and to raise a family. It's worth remembering the average family of four is paying $3,200 less thanks to our tax cuts. And our choice to remain on track for balancing the budget in fiscal 2015-2016 is a statement of confidence. Confidence in our businesses and workers that as global markets recover, our entrepreneurs and highly skilled workforce will seize that opportunity. Confidence that the prudence we practice today will earn our prosperity for years to come. Canadians can be confident in themselves, confident in this budget, and confident in this government. I want to focus, though, on the elements of Budget 2013 that are most important to my home area of Waterloo Region. For those honourable members unfamiliar with the Waterloo Region, our community has a history of reinventing our economy to adapt with changing times. Our ability to reinvent ourselves has always hinged on our uniquely strong sense of community. When there is an opportunity to be pursued, business, academia, government, labour, and the community sector all work together to make it happen. The people of Waterloo Region do not look for handouts, but they welcome collaboration and support. And that's why I stand today in this House and state categorically that this budget presents great news for my riding of Kitchener-Conestoga and for all of Waterloo Region. From engineers to welders, our region is one of the hardest hit by the skilled worker shortage our government continues to address. Our government is committed to providing leadership in correcting this. We will support the use of apprentices in federally funded projects and long-term infrastructure programs. We will work in collaboration with the provinces and territories to standardize requirements for apprentices in the skilled trades. We're expanding opportunities for new entrants to the job market to get the skills they need and increasing supports for Canadians with disabilities. And we committed to the Canada Job Grant, which will provide funds to help Canadians get the skills they need for the in-demand jobs. 130,000 Canadians will be able to take advantage of this program each year, and the direct involvement of employers will ensure the training offered aligns with the skills Canadians need. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce called Canada's Economic Action Plan 2013, quote, "a significant step forward in the federal government's attack on Canada's skills challenge," end of quote. But it wasn't only business organizations offering praise. The Association of Canadian Community Colleges, the Canadian Building Trades, and Engineers Canada all spoke highly of our approach to building the talent Canada needs where it needs it. And Dr. John Tibbetts, president of Conestoga College, noted that, quote, "this budget clearly recognizes the important role that applied learning plays as a catalyst for job opportunity and innovation that will reinvigorate Canada's economy and put us on the path to a brighter future," end of quote. Mr. Speaker, even the Canadian Labour Congress called our plans around apprenticeships, quote, "a good first step in creating opportunities," end quote. But it's not just a shortage of talent that's holding us back. Our high-tech industry faces a severe lack of venture capital. High potential companies in my riding, like Myovision Technologies and ClearPath Robotics, have shared the difficulty small companies face in finding the investment needed to take them to that next level. We live in a global economy, and there is a very healthy entrepreneurial culture south of the border, and they are very willing to purchase promising small enterprises. Too often, they require that the company's core team move to the U.S. to be closer to their funders, and the result is lost growth. We need this amazing talent. We need these entrepreneurs to stay right here in Canada. As a government, we need these companies to stay here, at home, in Canada, because we want the jobs they create to be created here, at home, in Canada. Ian Klugman, CEO of Communitech, Waterloo Region's Technology Association, noted the significance of Budget 2013, stating that, quote, "The two key barriers to growth for tech companies are access to talent and access to capital." Budget 2013 takes aim at helping companies overcome both of these barriers. The additional resources for NRC IRAP and the Business Development Bank of Canada will increase the availability of much-needed capital for Canada's tech companies. Communitech was also pleased to see our government support entrepreneurship by supporting business incubators, and if I could, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to share a bit about the impact a business incubator can have on economic growth. Communitech offers a business incubator program to high-tech startups. The Communitech Hub opened in 2009 as part of a 5-year digital strategy. Both were supported by this government. We see the benefits when large, established companies donate to support services for startups. We see the impact that peer-to-peer training and mentorship can deliver to young companies. We see the synergies that result when aspiring entrepreneurs are able to access bleeding-edge technologies like the 3D virtual environment. And how do we see all of these very positive changes? Well, let's measure the impact against its 5-year plan, just 3 years into that plan. 800 new digital media and mobile technology companies, 8 times their forecast. 1,600 new jobs in startup companies, 80% of their 5-year goal. 350 million in equity investments, more than triple their 5-year goal. As a result of this holistic approach to business development offered by the Hub, 83% of startups in the Communitech network are still in business after 5 years. That's almost double the industry average. These are the keys to a prosperous community. And speaking of prosperous communities, I must mention how pleased the communities that make up Kitchener-Conestoga were with this budget's commitment to renewing our infrastructure, a $53 billion program in predictable infrastructure funding. This 10-year program is the largest and longest federal commitment to infrastructure in Canadian history. Its components include a $14 billion renewal of the Building Canada Fund to support major economic infrastructure projects, a 5-year plan to continue building infrastructure projects through innovative public-private partnerships, or P3s, and more than $32 billion in enhanced gas tax fund payments to provide predictable, application-free funding to municipalities. This long-term predictable funding is something our municipal partners have been requesting for years. Also, while keeping on track for a return to surplus, we are investing new money to help move vulnerable Canadians off the streets, out of shelters, and into stable housing, and to invest directly in affordable housing. For my home region of Waterloo, it's estimated that the gas tax fund improvements alone will channel an additional $126 million to our local municipalities. Grant Whittington, the Chief Administrative Officer of Wilmot Township, sent me a note shortly after the budget stating that he felt, quote, "The budget was well done and provided long-term financial support for municipal infrastructure," end quote. He concluded by noting that, quote, "The indexing of the gas tax funding program is very appreciated," end quote. Kitchener City Councillor Barry Verbanovic, also the past president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, agreed, stating that, quote, "The federal government has delivered to municipalities with this budget," end of quote. The FCM was even more effusive with their praise. Quote, "We applaud the government for choosing to continue moving our communities forward even as it meets its immediate fiscal challenges. It will spur growth and job creation while laying the foundation for a more competitive economy. From engineers to educational institutions, from big business to small business to organized labor, from our communities and our newspapers, we're hearing the same thing. This budget is good news. Good news for Canada, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to seeing Bill C-60 passed, the Economic Action Plan implemented quickly. Our communities need the funds to renew their infrastructure. Our unemployed need the training opportunities, and our business need the talent. I ask all honourable members to support Bill C-60, making it easier for families to adopt a child and provide a healthy, nurturing environment, making it easier for charities to attract new donors, as proposed by my friend, the honourable member of Kitchener-Waterloo, making it easier for businesses to grow and innovate to create new jobs and better-paying jobs, making it easier to support the development and expansion of palliative care services for those who so desperately need it. I am proud of this budget, and I'm proud of how Canadians have persevered through this time of economic adversity. I'm confident in Canadians. The government shares that confidence. This budget and this bill reflect that confidence, and I ask all honourable members to join me in supporting Bill C-60. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Questions and commentary. The honourable member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Speaker, I know that the honourable member spoke of apprenticeships and all that this government is doing to encourage apprenticeships, and yet it's reported that despite these supposed measures, less than 50% of employers are providing apprenticeships. The building trades and construction group have called on this government to actually require, now by the way, Mr. Speaker, you may not be aware, but apparently the government is the largest purchaser of construction activity in this country. And so the building trades and construction workers are calling upon this government to actually require that for all federal RFPs bidding, that they are required to provide a certain percentage of apprenticeships. I wonder if the member could advise if he's willing to speak to his government and support that directive.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for the question. In fact, Mr. Speaker, that particular principle is included in this budget implementation bill, that we will require, in fact, I said it in my speech, we will support the use of apprentices in federally funded projects and long-term infrastructure projects. And Mr. Speaker, while I'm on my feet speaking to that, just recently I held a roundtable in my riding dealing with the Canada Jobs Grant. And to see the uptake by our post-secondary institutions and our industries was amazing to see how they're excited about this Canada Jobs Grant, which will link the people who need the training with the industry to find out what training they actually need. So, Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear that the action of this government is going to help address the skilled trade shortages in our country, and at the same time provide those opportunities for businesses who are looking for these jobs that are going unfilled right now, and we're not meeting the needs of our industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And comments. The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Mr. Speaker, one of the issues in which Canadians from coast to coast to coast are very much concerned with is the issue of health care. And when you think of health care, it was Pierre Trudeau that actually brought in the Health Care Act. It was Jean Chrétien that prevented the tax shift from taking over in terms of the funding of health care, Mr. Speaker. And then it was Paul Martin who established the Health Care Accord that ultimately leads to today, where we are giving the billions of dollars in health care transfer cash over to the provinces. Now that agreement is expiring in 2014. What is this government going to be known for in terms of health care for Canadians, given that even the money that it's going today, it's not because of this Conservative government, it's because of a health care accord that was reached with the Paul Martin government back in 2004. That agreement expires in 2014. Where in this budget, or anywhere within this government, is there a commitment to health care into the future?
Honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question. It's interesting, his selective memory, because he went on and on about all of the things that the Liberal government implemented. But what he forgot, Mr. Speaker, is a $25 billion cut to health care and education transfers during a time when our provinces and municipalities were hurting. So they were forced to come up with those dollars or do without. Mr. Speaker, we have committed not to cut our transfers to the provinces. The health care funding that this government has provided and the increases in transfer to the province has been unprecedented. And Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, in this budget, there are some new initiatives that I would hope my colleague would support. Initiatives like funding for the Pallium Project, to give funding to palliative care groups that are trying to provide frontline training so we can do a better job of providing that palliative care to those that need it. There's all kinds of others, Mr. Speaker, but I see you're cutting me off. Thank you.
Honourable member for Essex.
The member mentions the palliative care. What he won't do, because I know he's a humble man, is take credit for a lot of the work that he's been doing in respect of seeing investments like that in palliative care. But my colleague, I want to commend him for his discussion today on C60. The gas tax fund, our government proposes to index that, and that measure is included in C60. That's a measure that's important for our communities and for their infrastructure. Can the member comment on that? And while we're at it, I'm stunned to see that the opposition, Mr. Speaker, are not going to support a measure like this for long-term predictable infrastructure funding for our communities, direct to them, so that they can do what they need to do.
There are about 20 seconds left for the member for Kitchener.
Mr. Speaker, the gas tax funding, the fact that it's permanent and indexed, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, that our municipalities have been asking for long-term predictable funding for years and years and years, and it's this government that doubled it and now has made it permanent and has also indexed it. So the municipalities are thrilled with the kind of support that they see going forward, and the long-term predictability of it is the best part of it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hey, please do débat. L'ordre